This is Vanessa Munns, who's done her top music certification, and I'm Rebecca Stewart, head of certification. And I just wanted Vanessa to share with us all a little bit about her experience. So, Vanessa, thank you
Yeah.
very much for coming.
Oh, thanks for having me. Love it.
Yeah, so good. And can you tell us about where you're based and a little bit about your teaching?
Okay. I've run my own studio in the small town of Beacon, which is about 330 k's northeast of Perth. The town is about 100 people total, and I've got a studio of about 100 kids, or kids, mainly kids. So I've probably got about a handful of adults at the moment. And yeah, that's multi instrumental teaching as well. So there's a lot going on in my little studio. I do
Yeah.
travel and teach online, so it's quite a multifaceted way I well, I have to, otherwise I'd only have 5 5 students. Is that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And I relate to that too. So I'm in a little village. I'm not sure how many people are in my village, but it takes me 20 minutes to drive to a supermarket. So, like yourself, I've had to think a bit creatively about how to connect in my community. So,
Mhm.
and Vanessa, what drew you to top music certification?
With my background, qualifications are actually in science, so I don't have any actual formal qualifications in music. So I was always sort of like, oh, I possibly need to have something so to make sure I'm on the right track. And I've been a member of Top Music since 2019, January 2019, and I attended my first conference, which was Piano Pivot Live, and because I got a scholarship from AMEB for as a remote teacher to come over, they paid for my ticket, so all I had to do was do the plane fare. So I jumped in at that, and so I just went. The certification will really help formalize all the stuff that I've learned, bring it all together, and just go, yeah, I'm really on the right track for who I want to be as a music teacher in my rural area where nobody else is doing it. Because I could sit on my butt and do not much and still have a very busy studio, but be bored out of my mind because I'm not
Yeah.
being creative. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
what
that's
drew me to
great.
it. And
Yeah.
I just love the approaches that the whole Top Music Pro actually brings to how I want to do things. So it's just like a natural progression for me to go, yeah, I'm jumping in and just get it done.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's great. I didn't know you'd been to Piano Pivot Live, so I wish I'd gone now. The things we knew, if we'd known what 2020 would be like, I think all of us would have gone there.
Oh, you have
Um,
no idea. 2020. So I went to Piano Pivot Live. I was literally on the plane on the way home and I was scribbling notes and stuff like that. Little did I know 2 weeks later, before COVID hit, the WA government decided, Labor, decided no more private lessons during school time in public schools. My
Interesting.
so my whole teaching studio just went straight up in smoke in 2 days. Bang. And
Wow.
I had to pivot completely. And because that piano pivot, they were talking about online lessons. So I ended up having to move most of my students after school and the schools were happy for me to use their premises so I could still travel to the different towns. But then I had a few kids who are quite remote that they'd had to travel like an hour on a school bus, morning and afternoon. And I said,
Yeah.
look, I've heard of these online lessons. I don't know how it would work, but will you be my guinea pigs? Yes. Little did I know I'll be going online overnight with 50 students by the end of that term.
Yeah.
So there was all. Oh my gosh. So, yeah, so
That's
there's
right.
a lot of stuff that from Piano Pivot that if I hadn't gone there, I would not be in the position I'm in today because of that.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. Such an exciting opportunity, and that you needed it straight away. And I think that's a lot like what you're saying with certification is as well. It's that you're taking your actual real life teaching situation and running with any kind of pivots or transformations
yeah,
that need to happen based on what's happening in your real life. So,
yeah, yeah.
oh, that's great.
And
That's a great story there.
oh, believe
Suddenly
me.
online before all
Oh,
of us.
yeah, well, it was one of those situations where it's sort of like when I got told the news, the principals, because I was at 3 different primary schools, and they were all not very happy, and they go, "Look, we'll support you, we'll work something out," and stuff like
Great.
that. But I had, like, a whole week where I couldn't even tell the parents what was going on because it was all sort of like that, and then I'm just going, "What am I going to do?" I rang up my husband. I was literally sitting on a bench at one of the schools, and I just rang up my husband and said, "Oh my god, we're stuffed. Absolutely stuffed. What am I going to
Yeah.
do?" I had all the ideas running in my head, so by that end of that afternoon, I had a plan, but I still was that unsure and going,
Yes.
This still might not work. What am I gonna do? I'm in the middle of nowhere. I teach
Yeah.
in the middle of nowhere. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do?"
Yes. Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. That's amazing. I think that's the nature of where we are now. We're all very flexible and we're all very ready to just put out a whole bunch of ideas and try something that's just kind of
Yeah.
where we have to be. So,
And
can I ask you? So, this is all you're in a rural area. I'm in a rural area too. How did you enjoy in certification working with colleagues?
I loved it. It's one of the things that I think you gain so much more of an insight into how other people actually teach. So you can actually sort of nitpick what they do and actually go, "Oh, that actually might work with me." Because there was stuff that I was talking about. "Oh yeah, I'll do that." Blah blah. And they go, and the teachers would go, "Can I use it?" I go, "Oh, yeah, go for it." It's that natural sharing of ideas, which is so important for your own creative thought processes on how to actually go, "Well, I've got a student that might actually work for," because you haven't actually thought of it in the way that the other teacher thinks about it. And you go, "That actually might work." Or it might lead you another few steps along the way and go, "Hang on, if I can do it that way, I can do it this way as well." That natural collaborative work environment, it's a lot more, the ideas just start going flowing out like nothing else, where you just go, "Uh-huh, I can do it that way. It's going to work." It takes those barriers out, which is that for your own thinking processes. Because I mean, before doing anything with type music, I had this set idea. You had to be strict as a teacher. You had to do this and this and this. Type music and collaborating with other people who've got the same ideas. It basically goes, well, you know what? We don't have to be boring. We can do things in a different way and still achieve the exact same results. And that collaborative work environment in the certification means that it's all your shackles are removed, which is what we need. Hence
Absolutely.
why I'm that busy.
Yeah, that's right. And we're creative people. And so to face these things in a creative way with other people is
Yeah,
really inspiring. And it's not just, oh, I've got one good idea to use on Monday's lesson.
yeah,
It's, oh, I've got a new way of thinking about this. What would happen if I do
yeah.
this or that or the other thing? Yeah.
And
So,
it allows you, and having those different ideas in your mind or something that you can just take it and you can pivot so much more quickly in a lesson, whether it be in a group lesson or in a one-on-one. You can pivot just like that because you can see what's going on and you're not going, "Oh, well, that lesson didn't quite go to plan yet again." You're trying different things to actually find out the way that the student will actually go, "Yeah, got it." Then
yes,
go.
that's right. Through collaborating, we learn to be flexible and think of
Yeah,
new things. And then
yeah.
when we come to our students, we've got that spirit of flexibility ready
Yeah,
so that
yeah.
if they say, I wrote a piece of music this week, you don't just
Oh,
hear it and then say, great, now let's turn to page 17.
yeah,
You
exactly. Oh,
actually you actually
exactly.
run with it and you've got all these ideas that you got from Donna and from Nikki and from Sue and
Oh,
yeah.
and that's the thing, because I had that situation where I did have a online student goes, "I've composed a piece," and I'm just going, "Okay, it's really good. Let me hear it." Blah blah blah, and I'm just thinking that really sounds like Ode to Joy. "What notes are you playing?" Blah blah blah, and we went, and it was Ode to Joy, but she worked it out. She just thought she was. I went, "Okay, well, let's do some composing, and I'll get my note flight up, and we can do it do it over the phone, and let's see what we can do." And completely off the track of my plan for what I had in mind, but because she was interested in the composing, down that little rabbit hole we went for the day. And then Mum heard her play her own composition at the end of the lesson. Bonus.
Exactly. That's right. So we're not necessarily going to look back and go, remember that lesson where we got everything done on our lesson plan and we did 17, page 18, page 19. We're going to look back and say, hey, remember that day that that student played her composition for her mum, or we recorded it,
Yeah,
or they played it for the next student. Yeah. So
yeah,
really memorable things can come from that
yeah,
flexibility, I think, as well. So now
yeah.
I wanted to ask you too about your portfolio. So in your portfolio, assessment portfolio, what did you find really beneficial in that? Or was it beneficial?
It was beneficial in that I learned how to do lesson planning properly, like sat down, and because I never really had like, I knew where I wanted to go, but the actual nutting out those individual steps, and that was probably one of the main reasons why I just went, I need to do this certification, because then I'll get a much better idea of that, because I'd done most of the marketing and business side of things already in the Top
Sure.
Music Pro. I had a really good solid studio, to the point that my piano tuner was telling me that I'm probably one of the most switched on teachers that he's met. And I went,
Wow.
okay, well, that's pretty impressive. Really? Because I know there's lots of teachers out there. And so, yeah, doing the lesson planning, I think it was a struggle for me, because it's sort of like I really had to formalize what I was doing. And I only did end up focusing on piano, because I thought, no, if I get this piano done, I've got half my studio done, and then I can work on the other instruments and stuff like that. That was probably, yeah, that was that, yeah, all the other bits of the certification. Yeah, got that. Know what I'm doing with that. Understand where Top Music, the certification, was coming from, and looking at that. So with all the other, so with the ones I chose, the ones where I was confident with, but also the other portfolio activities which I could have done, it's actually made me go, oh, I really need to revisit that for a specific reason. Like, every single option is actually quite valuable. And so I could actually pick and choose the ones which I could knew what I could do now, and then go, yeah, I need to think a bit more about those other aspects. But it was the lesson planning that was the most important, that I
Mm.
was more keen on about. So, yeah,
Yeah.
the one that
Um,
stressed me out.
yeah, for sure. Well, Tim and I were both really excited to hear your feedback on that elsewhere, and some other teachers too, that really practical options, things that are useful for you in portfolio, but also, in some places we had 5 different options for one topic, and that you could then go back and say, well, I've finished my portfolio official assessment, but I'd really like to work on this other point,
That,
option 2.
yeah,
So we have the next, 10, 20 years where we can continually revise and improve what we're doing
yeah.
by using some
And
of those things.
yeah, and I think the whole process of actually getting it down on paper gives you something to refer back to, so you can keep revising what you've already done. So I can go back, look, okay, well, maybe I need to massage that a bit for whatever reason, or, well, I've had a change of thought process. So I've got, I want
Yeah,
to bring more of this in, and do that. So I think that, whilst I've been muddling my way over the years and just go, oh, yeah, yeah, I'm following certain things and changing my mind, and stuff like that, it actually formalizes in my mind why I'm doing things the way I'm doing it. So, which is very helpful when you don't have, or haven't had, the mentorship that when you start out teaching, and stuff like that. You're not treading water and just going, oh my goodness, duck on pond type thing, where you trying to be professional and just going, I've got no idea what I'm doing. Yeah.
and underneath the water, your feet are paddling like crazy. That's the
And,
image. Yeah,
yeah, and I mean, there is this philosophy out there. You only have to be 1 or 2 steps ahead of your student, and I'm just going, that doesn't lead to necessarily good results, because whilst you might be 1 or 2 steps ahead, you really need to be thinking about what your end process is, what your end product is going to be. Happy, musically educated kids who will be lifelong musicians and just love the whole process. So how do we make them, how can you understand what the end process is if you're only 2 steps ahead of them? So that's the main.
exactly.
So,
Exactly. You need to be looking out to the distance as you're stepping ahead of your students, because otherwise you might be stepping in any random direction.
yeah,
So,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yes.
agree. And having colleagues around us who have already thought about some of those things means that we're walking along then together.
Oh,
And it's it's very inspiring to motivate us to continue and step faster. So,
yeah, and it was really interesting to get teachers who are on different at different stages. So you had the beginning teachers who've only had students for a year, and then the ones who've been teaching for forever. And whilst it's one of those things, because I think Donna was saying that she was quite reluctant to start talking, but then she got confident in the whole group thing about sharing ideas. And I agree with that. It's sort of a case of there is that reluctance, or like, do I speak up and show people that I don't know what I'm don't know what I'm doing, or do you just open up and say, let's be open and go, well, I've got this problem, or this is what I do for this reason, and have a discussion about what the good points. We don't necessarily focus on the stuff that doesn't work, but that's still just as important, because in by seeing what works for other people and having them just as scared to talk, and it just creates a much more beneficial environment, and we become more open to collaborative stuff. As teachers, we then grow so much more. That's what I so
yeah, yeah. You've
I'm
you've explained it beautifully. That's right. About being authentic. If we're all trying
yeah,
to be the perfect teacher, then we're actually not growing.
no,
But by all admitting, I mean, we're not perfect people, and
no,
we are trying things, and it's important that we try things that may or may not work and adjust things, and that means that we're, building
yeah,
in
and I
our
think
abilities.
yeah, and I think that's sort of that ability to make mistakes and just go, "Oh, I'm learning," or, "Oh, that was a bit of creativity," and stuff like that. Especially with the young kids, I don't know if you see it. There's a lot of performance or stress about not getting things correct first time, and kids are breaking down, and I just go, "You've made a mistake. Have you? It's not the end of the world. What's happened? You made a mistake." And then you're playing along, and I some days brain is just gone, "Oh, well, that didn't quite work the way I was planning, but okay, let's run with it." And you have to be able to be open to go, "Well, I'm doing this way, but I don't know why. I need to understand the why so I can improve, or understand why I'm doing it a certain way." So yeah, being open and learning, keep learning.
Absolutely. And I think that if we don't have that spirit, then it's very hard for us to improvise. It's very hard for
Well,
us to teach our students to improvise or to perform confidently or to, have a fiddle or try something from YouTube. So
well,
the more we try things with them and say, oh, I made the wrong note. Oh, well, let's keep going.
yeah,
That modeling, constant modeling in the lesson, and oh,
yeah,
let's just try this. I don't know if it's going to work, but let's just try it. That's going
yeah,
to create resilient musicians as well as lifelong
absolutely.
learners. So, yeah,
I'm working on that myself, being more resilient, not having
yeah,
a, oh,
yeah, me too. All right. Well, thanks for all those bits and pieces, Vanessa. And if anyone is listening and wants to ask more about it, please get in touch with us at Top Music